Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Jeremy Blair.
And I'm Ryan Whalen. So, buddy, where are you? Where are you right now? I can't speak today.
I'm in my daughter's bedroom. She's not using it, so no. My dad's wife is in town this week helping us out. She is so wonderful. Her name is Dee. She is amazing. She is helping us. She's making us dinner. She's watching Maya while Haley goes back to work. It is her first week back, and so we were like, oh shit, we need someone to watch her because we don't have daycare yet. So Dee is in town this week. My mom will be in town next week, just to help us out. So yeah. But until then, I'm letting them obviously have the majority of the apartment. So I'm doing this in here. So yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like how the living room has kind of become my recording space now. So,
So yeah, I mean, it's not still, if I can. So I did hang some movie posters in Maya's room. So there's Sleeping Beauty and there's Little Mermaid. So there's still movie stuff in here.
Yeah.
But I did, before we dive into probably our most wholesome episode we'll ever have,
I agree.
I wanted to give a quick recommendation.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have the time, go see Heretic. It's awesome.
God damn it.
It was awesome.
Before you go on, I asked Ashley, I was like, hey, do you want to go see that on Saturday? And she was like, no, I got a lot of homework, which she did. She had a ton of homework that she had to do for her master's. And so, and what's funny is there's a customer that I talk movies with, mainly because we haven't really found a lot of common ground. And when I first helped her, you know what? I'm not going to move on just in case she listens. But I mentioned to her that I really wanted to see it, and then she asked me today. She came in today and she was like, "Oh, did you go see the movie?" I was like, "No, my wife had a lot of homework." She's like, "My mom went and saw it. She says it's awesome."
It was great.
I'm like, I know. Okay, I know.
I would say if he keeps this up, I think Hugh Grant's got a pretty cool second half of a career coming up, because I thought he was great in The Gentleman. I don't know if you've seen that Guy Ritchie film. It was good. And he's great in that.
I really wanted to see The Gentleman. Yeah. No, but I agree. I think Hugh, I think Hugh kind of fell into this trap of pretty boy, so let's put him in rom-coms. Yeah. And now that he's gotten older, I feel like now he's still very handsome.
Yes, of course.
I will say he still looks great. But I feel like now he doesn't have to fit in that box. Like when me, Ashley, and Mom went and saw Dungeons and Dragons, he was
great in that. Yeah.
As the sort of, I wouldn't say dopey villain, but he wasn't like the mastermind behind everything. But yeah, and also one of the movies we're talking about today. Yeah, I really want to see. I desperately want to see Heretic.
Yeah, Heretic was so good. Was great. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if you've looked up who's in it, but don't, because there's a surprise. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I know.
I couldn't believe it. I was in the theater, and at first I didn't recognize him, and then the third or fourth scene he was in, I go, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, no, I wasn't intending on it. I was just looking up just general information about the movie, how it was doing.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure I've mentioned it on the show, but if not, I'll mention it again. That when a movie I'm really excited for, if I've seen it or I haven't seen it, I want to see how it's doing. So I want to see how it's doing on the Rotten Tomatoes score and that kind of thing. And I looked up the Rotten Tomatoes score and it was great. I was like, yes. And then I just happened to scroll down just a little bit more, and I was like, oh,
no way! I know
he's in this movie.
I couldn't believe it. It took me out of the movie for 2 minutes. I was just like, no way,
Yeah. we're not going to spoil it
No,
for
no, no. I
anyone
mean, because if
who
you're,
wants to go see
I
it.
think if you're around our age, I think it's a cool little fun cameo.
Well, you want to talk about someone else who's had a really good second half of
Yeah,
their
that's true.
career lately, but yeah, I really want to see it. Like, I was sold from that first trailer. I was like, let's go. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
A24 has had some bangers this
Yeah,
year.
definitely recommend. Just for Hugh Grant, really. I mean, the women they're amazing in it as well, and the writing is impeccable, and some of the filmmaking techniques are really cool. But Hugh Grant steals it. He's just too good, you know. So yeah,
Yeah.
see Heretic. It's,
Well, and to tie into the episode,
yeah.
like we were talking about off mic, because of today's episode, I was feeling very whimsical, and so I rewatched Wonka, also by Paul King, and Hugh is fantastic as an Oompa Loompa. I still want to know how they did it. I know it was probably mocap, but like certain parts felt like they really did paint him orange and film him on a blue screen and then just shrunk him down. I don't know, because it's so seamless, and Hugh just did such a
Yeah,
great job as an Oompa
yeah,
Loompa.
Hugh Grant. I mean, imagine that's how good he is that you thought that he was enjoying himself. I think that when
Well,
we both know he
apparently,
wasn't.
no, apparently, well, apparently he did.
Okay.
He truly did like enjoy, and supposedly, and this will be the less wholesome thing. Supposedly, when Paul King sent him the design of what his Oompa Loompa was going to look like, the Oompa Loompa was completely naked, and Paul King, because so Hugh Grant said that in an interview, and so they asked Paul King in a completely different interview, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's real." He was like, "It's out there somewhere." He's like, "Let's hope no one finds it."
That's funny.
But anyway, so we're now moving on to, like you said, probably the most wholesome episode I think we'll ever do. Well, no, a Goofy movie was pretty
That's true.
wholesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I honestly think this one that'll top that. So, Jeremy, what are we talking about today?
Today we are discussing a double feature. We are discussing Paul King's adaptation of Paddington and Paddington 2. I mean, I can't wait. This no, I don't think a film or films have brought me so much joy in a long time. They are wonderful movies.
They truly are. I like for the tease last week. I'd never seen the first Paddington. I saw the trailer, and I was like, "Oh, that looks like a kids movie. Probably won't go see that." And then I heard they made a sequel, and I was like, "Oh my god, seriously, they made a sequel?" And then I saw The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and Pedro Pascal's character Javi says that it made him want to be a better man. I'm like, okay, what is this movie? And then when I was working at AT&T, my assistant manager put it on, the second one, and I got to that scene, which we'll get to, and I was like, wait, this is a kids movie? And he's like, I know, dude. Like he was feeling it. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna have to see these
Mhm.
movies. And you know what, man? Just like you, man, they were wonderful.
Yeah.
I was laughing. I was like, these are so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did want to ask at the top of the
Sure.
show, before we get into it, mainly for my wife. She wanted to know why you wanted to do these movies.
Okay, so similar to you, it was really word of mouth, but yours was Pedro Pascal. Mine was Cinefix, like it usually is. Cinefix,
Yeah.
over the past few years since its release, has been like, we are not kidding. Paddington 2 is incredible. And I'm like, and I kept seeing it over and over again. I go, oh man, I guess it must be good. Because, I mean, these guys really know their stuff, and, you know, they're who I want. They are who I want to be. You know, they are my
Yeah.
inspiration, you know? Um, because of how much knowledge they have and how much love they have for the art form. But yeah, there are many lists where they're like, and Paddington too, like I'm like, still, and then of course I saw The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and I was like, all right, man, this movie it must be so good, and I just haven't seen it, and so I was like, this is the perfect opportunity. Let's sit down, let's watch them, and so yes, Cinefix gave it, monumental praise. It got a shout out in a Nick Cage film. Incredible, right? However, the highest praise these movies have gotten are from my wife, who said, and I quote, "I liked it." Guys, that's a huge deal. All right, that's like a 10 out of 5. Like, for her to say I liked it, oh man, and she had a big smile on her face when she said it. Oh man, I mean, so I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but we have a rating system for her, and 5 stars for her. So like, we'll put on a movie, we'll watch it, blah blah. If she says it was fine, that's 5 stars. That's the highest rating she'll give it. Is it was fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
A 4 is I didn't hate it as much as the other ones. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
for her to say that she liked it, I mean, that tells you how amazing these films are.
Yeah. I I asked Ashley if she wanted to watch them with me, and she was like, "No, not really." And I think it's because she may have the same hangups I was having. Like, oh, it's a kids movie, like. But I'll be honest, when I was finishing Paddington 2, I was noticing her kind of peek under her sleeping mask a little bit because I was finishing it on my phone. I had the last like 20 minutes, and I was like, I have to go to bed, but I need to finish the movie. And I noticed her kind of.
Yeah, it is like, what's the big deal about it? Now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we'll start with the first one, obviously.
Okay. Yeah.
Paddington. So, Paddington follows a bear from Peru, who is raised by these older bears that he calls his aunt and uncle. These bears were visited by a British explorer. I don't remember the year, but it's probably like in like the 1920s or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
And so the bears learned British culture through them. They have British accents. They love marmalade. They study British manners and proper ways of living. They pass this knowledge along to Paddington. Something horrible happens. His uncle passes, and his aunt, who's always wanted to visit London, puts him on a boat, and she says she cannot go with him. She has to stay, and he goes to London. And from there, he meets the Brown family, and the matriarch of the Brown family, played by Sally Hawkins, who is incredible. She sort of takes him in and nurtures him and cares for him and tries to help him find answers. And through Paddington's charm and wonderful personality and friendliness, he wins everybody over. He befriends everyone he meets. He is just the sweetest little charming bear. However, meanwhile, there is this evil, nasty woman who is related to that British explorer, who wants to turn him into taxidermy. And
who's she played by, Jimmy?
She is played by Nicole Kidman, which I was shocked by. Again, I didn't really look to see who was in these movies, so that was fun. I was like, okay, cool. She's a fun sort of mustache twirling villain, and I like that. and these films are Paddington. This first one is so brightly lit and colorful and fun and whimsical and funny and cute, and yet there's a lot of emotion and heart and peril in some cases. But really, it's Paddington trying to find a home and trying to find somewhere to belong, and he finds out with the Browns. And that's Paddington.
You know, to piggyback on what you said, that these movies have a lot of heart. You know, when I started the first movie and his uncle, I want to try to say it.
Good luck.
It's Pazuzzo. Pazuzzo?
That's probably right.
His uncle. When he passes away, I'm going to be honest, I didn't think they were going to do that.
Yeah.
But I checked the time code. And I was like, oh my God, we're 7 minutes in. We still have over an hour and a half to go. And
it's Michael Gambon, by the way.
I know, so which makes it worse.
I know.
But also, his Aunt Lucy is voiced by Umbridge.
Yeah.
So they had 2 Harry Potter alums voicing his
Wouldn't be the only ones.
That's true. But yeah, it was so interesting. When I saw that, I was like, wow, they really committed to, his uncle dying so early on in the film. But I think it also is to add this emotional weight to the film. And like you just said, that Paddington, his whole journey of the first film is just trying to find some place to belong. And it just, I don't know. For me, it was like, having that loom over the film the whole time. It didn't take me out of it. I was just like, man, they killed his uncle 7 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
But I think what makes this movie so good and so charming is Paul King really knows how to balance this heaviness of emotion with very lighthearted moments, because Paddington himself, I wouldn't say moves on, but he definitely processes it and is able to, move forward.
Yeah.
Really well. And
yeah.
Which is interesting.
Paddington has a very unique balance of emotional intelligence and manners and politeness and charm with childlike naivete. That, I mean, they work so well together that, and they'll never portray it. Paddington will never be mean to anybody. Paddington will never be rude. Paddington will never, he'll never, say anything negative about anything. He's very positive and optimistic, and again, very, very childlike in his outlook on life. However, instead of the world changing that for Paddington changes the world around him for the better. And I think that's what makes these films really so wonderful to watch and so comforting to watch. It really is Paddington being that anchor. And of course, the Brown family and their quirkiness and their sort of willingness to be themselves also, with, of course, exception with Henry Brown until the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that we do sort of get the balance within the family of Mary being very optimistic and being very, quirky, and to use a modern term, or at least I would guess you'd say an American term, very crunchy granola kind of mom.
Sure.
And then you have Henry Brown being the very straight-laced, like I thought it was so funny that he was on the phone with his home insurance.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we brought in a bear. No. Yeah, no, a real bear.
Yeah.
Like, grizzly. Well, I haven't seen him in the morning. Yeah. No. Yeah. I love that. I love that, even in a kids movie, we get these really cool conflicting character types that play really well together. And also, I'm so glad the movie showed us what Henry was like before um their daughter was born, because I was like, it doesn't seem like Mary and Henry would be compatible.
Yeah.
And then we get that flashback, and I'm like, oh, he was just as
Yeah.
crunchy granola as her.
Yeah, the dude was wild, man.
Yeah. He was Bullseye Henry.
That's right.
Or Bullseye Brown.
Bullseye Brown.
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, man, I love that through Paddington, through his naivety, but also his heart, he changes everything around him.
Yeah, he makes other people better instead of the world making him worse, which I really appreciated. You had also mentioned just a moment ago that you liked these sort of character archetypes in a kids movie. Here's what I believe to be the genius of these films that I was not expecting at all. Is I guess it would be Paul King's decision, or perhaps maybe also collaborative with producers and other people on the film, but their willingness to not pander or seemingly talk down to the audience that they are presenting this to, or that it's targeted to, by using very unique, clever film language. So, for instance, and again, Haley was right next to me, and every time something cool would happen, or something interesting, or a different filmmaking technique, or a cool story device, or something cool, she would look at me and she goes, "Oh, you like that, didn't you?" I'm like, "Yeah." when the dollhouse opens and it's the house, and then we see everyone's rooms, and we see how we're introduced to each member of the family, and they all have their section of the dollhouse. I was immediately reminded of Hereditary, of course, but with using that small space and opening it up, and then zooming in on it, and it is a real livable live action space, I loved. And immediately I was surprised, taken aback a little, and then so excited, because I knew I was in for a treat for the rest of the film, where I'm going to be surprised by really interesting, clever film techniques. And Paul King not shying away from doing something complicated, or showing parts of the story in a unique way. Wait till we get to the second one, because there's a sequence there that I will never forget that I think was so clever. But in this film, you even have the cherry blossom trees that are drawn on the wall, and the leaves vanish and then they come back and all of that, and it's and I guess if you were a child watching this, it completely makes sense to you. I don't know if you'd be able to articulate why it makes sense, but it does, because it's to represent the family dynamics and their emotional states at those given scenes. But the film is full of cool stuff like that.
Yeah.
That again I was shocked by, and I loved it.
Yeah, like one of my favorites is with the flashback of seeing Henry, how he was before their daughter was born, and it's like they go into the hospital and he's this wild and crazy guy, and then they come out, his hair's cut, he's in a sweater vest, and the motorcycle's gone, and he's traded it in for a family car, a beige color, because it's not too crazy.
Yeah, it's whoa, it's beige.
And I just love that, because like you're saying, like Paul King isn't pandering to kids. Yes, this is a kids movie, but he's not like, oh, here, let me hold your hand, like most kids films, like This is just the first one that came to mind, like a Paw Patrol kind of movie.
We're
where it's-
oversimplifying. He's not oversimplifying anything.
Yeah.
There is real emotional weight. There's lots of nuance. There's, again, complex storytelling and complex film language that he's not shying away from, which I really appreciated. And I do believe that makes a difference, and that's what elevates this film to, it's not just a kid's movie, or it's not just a family film. These are truly great films.
I agree. I think it's sort of like, I see it as, after finishing these two movies, I see it as Paul King is kind of like reclaiming the whole family friendly type of movie.
Sure.
We can make a family friendly movie that's not a kid's film.
It's not just
I think
a drag to get through.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of one maybe that I've seen or heard of that I'm just like, ugh.
I don't know if I could give you an example off the top of my head.
I couldn't either. But I think, and I'm so glad to be proven wrong, because like I said at the top of the show, when I first saw the trailer for Paddington, I was just like, oh, another kids movie? Okay. And now having seen it, I'm like, I'm so glad I was wrong.
I could have watched, realistically, I could have watched probably 5 hours of Paddington being charmingly clumsy.
Yeah.
When they bring him home and he's in the bathroom, it's just so cute and it's so funny. And Haley was a little taken aback by Ben Winshaw's voice performance, because I know Ben Winshaw is incredible.
Yeah.
But she goes, I thought he was supposed to be a kid. This guy's like 30, And I was like, well, first off, he's a bear. So, let's get that out of the way.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I literally just read before we got started, Colin Firth was originally cast to voice Paddington, but then dropped out during post-production. I'm not for sure why. I didn't have enough time to look into that. But honestly, as much as I love Colin Firth, Ben's voice just fits so well for Paddington.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it's because of what we've been talking about, that Paddington is just so innocent and he's so naive. And Ben's voice is very soft and very welcoming and warm. Look, I remember the first movie I saw him in, which was one of the best James Bond films, Skyfall.
Yeah.
And I feel like they said the same thing about him when he meets James Bond for the first time. Ben is fantastic. And
yeah, that's probably the first thing I saw Ben Winshaw in, was Skyfall, all those years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then of course he's been in The Lobster, which we did on the show. Hey, if you haven't yet, go check out the YouTube for The Lobster. It only has, I think, 3 views. So why don't you go hop on over to that one?
Yeah, hopefully Future Rain will, right when you said that, will be like, hey, watch this.
It's a cool discussion, on surrealism and the rules of filmmaking. It was fun. Anyway, yes, Ben Winshaw I thought was incredible. And yeah, you're right. He lends this very soft, warm, inviting, but yet not quite childlike, obviously, because he's an adult. But there's still an innocence to the performance, and it's amazing. And I feel like if it was Colin Firth, that's interesting. Colin Firth listen, I don't know how he would have done it, so I don't know. I doubt he would have used his actual speaking voice.
Yeah, we can sit here and we can imagine what if, but I feel like Colin, I don't know. I feel like Colin's Paddington may have been a little bit too sure of himself. I mean, not that,
Maybe.
not that Ben's version of Paddington isn't, because Paddington definitely knows who he is. But I think because I'm kind of basing it on like some of the other performances I've seen from Colin Firth, like Kingsman, and I'm blanking on the one we did,
A Single Man,
from Tom Ford, A Single Man. I just I don't know. I'm glad they got Ben. I think Ben was the perfect choice.
Yeah, I agree. Another fun fact about this film: I didn't know what marmalade was until this movie. I had heard of it. I had no idea what it was, and now I'm an expert. So.
I had known what marmalade was because I think I've showed you that YouTube channel called Binging
Oh
with
yeah,
Babish.
of course.
Years ago, he recreated the marmalade from Paddington
Cool.
2, and so I'd seen that scene because he always shows a clip of the movie he's doing, and so I kind of knew what marmalade was. It makes me want to try it because I mean it's got all the essential vitamins and nutrients that a bear needs for a day.
Now, poor Ben Winshaw, because now he's been asked, I assume, 20 million times if he likes marmalade. And fun fact, no, he doesn't. So if you see Ben Winshaw, I've seen him, the poor guy. He just seems so defeated when he's asked this question. Because they're doing their press tour right now for the third one. And it keeps popping up on like my TikToks and Instagram and stuff. And since we were doing these this week, I stuck around and I watched some of them. And yeah, he's like, I don't like marmalade. And I go, little buddy, lie next time.
Or maybe he was lying for the press tour of the first movie, but he got asked it so much where he's just
Who knows? I don't know. I just feel so bad for him. It's sort of like, when a character is known for like a very specific thing, and it's like,
yeah. Okay, so I want to mention how I said it when we were off mic, but Paul King seems to really like reusing certain actors. Specifically, the actor who plays a security guard when Paddington and Mr. Brown go to the what was it,
it was like the
Nat Geo,
the Adventurers Society, or like the what are they called? Shit. Well, whatever.
It was like that guy shows up in the second one, and he shows up in Wonka as a security guard.
He's also in the British version of Ghosts. So go check that out. Because I also recognized him, and it's from Ghosts. That's what I know him from. But probably one of the hardest times I laughed was him being attracted to Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown.
Dude, the callback in the second one for that was incredible.
Well, and I think Paul King wanted to change that up a little bit. So his character is in love with an actual woman from like middle school that they reconnect at the end of the movie.
Right.
So I think Paul King was like, I can't make the same joke that you are somehow attracted to a man dressed up as a woman. So your character will be in love with a woman this time.
Yeah, I mean, it was the joke. It took me back because I'm like, oh, this is for families or whatever. But I go, that was pretty. I think I read somewhere that's what got it its PG rating in the UK was him being infatuated by Mr. Brown in drag.
See, I laughed the hardest when he's doing the whole test on Mr. Brown's fake arm, and he like really sticks him, and he's like, can't feel it.
Yeah.
Like it's so good. Yeah, I love that. So kind of going back to the movie, so that we're not focused on the bits. I love that this movie also has, a mystery element of Paddington trying to find the
Yeah.
explorer that came to Peru. And man, I didn't see it coming, that the reveal of Nicole
Oh,
Kidman
really?
being his daughter. But I didn't see it coming until, of course, I heard her
Uh-huh.
voice through the intercom. I was like, oh
Yep.
no.
Yeah, as soon as he
No.
rang that bell and you heard her voice, I was like, that makes sense. We have to tie these two
Um
storylines together somehow.
yeah. Nicole Kidman, I'm gonna be honest, she plays a good villain.
She was good. Yeah.
A very scary villain. I mean, she's even got Nandor the Relentless shaking in his boots. I didn't know who that was at first. I was like, that guy, he looks
Oh,
so familiar.
I couldn't wait to tell Haley. I was like, because she does this thing, and she's very good at it, where she will see someone and she'll go, "Oh, that person looks like this actor and this actor combined," and she did the same thing. And I go, "You actually know who that is?" And she kind of looked at him. And I was like, "Do you want to know?" I go, "That's Nando That's Nando De La Rentis right there." Um, and yeah, she was like, "No." I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Yep." Yeah, it was so cool. Seeing him and hearing him use a British accent, which is weird.
Yeah, which is his actual accent.
So
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. Shout out to What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes, absolutely.
So sad that this is the final season. Sidebar, everyone. Ashley asked me, she was like, "What are we going to do when it ends?" I was like, "I'd rewatch it and cry at the same time."
Walk into the ocean with rocks in our pockets. I don't know.
But yeah, no, I did like what you said about Nicole Kidman being a mustache twirling villain, because that's kind of what she
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
It's so funny. And then speaking of villains, we have one of my favorite actors that I mentioned. I think I mentioned it in the tease. Mr. Peter
Yeah, Peter
Capaldi
Capaldi.
playing Mr. Curry, the annoying neighbor who falls in love with Nicole Kidman almost immediately.
Dude, okay, maybe that was the hardest I laughed when he sees her and immediately, and of course it plays Hello, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
Some Lionel Richie, but it's like instantaneous. I thought it was so funny because we've already established she's a villain, and so of course he would fall in love with her. So good.
Yeah. And I should mention, this was right before he started filming Doctor Who.
Interesting.
I think, because his first episode premiered in 2014.
Okay, yeah, that would make
which
sense.
was when this movie came out. So he probably was filming them at the same time. Probably.
He's in the
Yeah. I love Peter Capaldi. He, even though I feel like Mr. Curry is a little bit more slimy in the sequel, which we'll get there. I feel like Mr. Curry has a little bit more of a heart in this first movie.
Yes.
Like when he catches her finally capturing Paddington, he's like, "I thought you were going to send him back to Peru. Like, this is kind of barbaric." I was like, "Oh, he does have a heart."
Yeah, he does care a little. He doesn't want Paddington to die.
He just doesn't want him on the street.
Yeah. He just, doesn't want to live with a wild animal. I guess I understand, but Paddington, I just want Paddington to constantly have me in an embrace. That's all. That's all.
Oh man. Yeah, I really love this first movie. And this would be a good transition, but I think the second one is significantly better.
Yeah, well, yes, because the first one, it does have that mystery element. You're right. It has that moment of peril. and of course there's the all is lost moment as well. I mean, it has its beats, and it has, you know, these traditional story beats, which the second one also has. You know, like when Paddington, you know, he's so clumsy, the poor guy, you know. Uh, when he has to leave the Browns house, it's so sad. And I was talking with Zach because Zach loves these films, and he shows them to his daughter Lila, and so he says that Lila just goes through an emotional roller coaster during these films. She gets so into it, and when he falls down that incinerator for that 0.2 seconds, like she is like comatose, like she is so distraught and so scared. And then of course she is the most excited and the most elated when they catch him, right? Um, by the
Yeah.
way, one of the cutest moments is him using the the dirt devils to stick to the wall.
Yeah, to scale the walls. I forgot to mention another part that I think this is the part I laughed the hardest, when Henry is outside the window trying to get Paddington's attention, and he's like, "Is that you, God?" That made me laugh so hard. And he's like, "'Cause you know, you sound a lot like Mr. Brown," and he's like, "It is Mr. Brown," and he's like, "Oh."
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah,
I
man.
like that he still had his coat and hat on when he was lying on the slab like that. Like she let him keep his coat on. That's nice, you know. Must be cold in there.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh yeah. Oh, and I mean, she is an integral part, but we haven't talked about Miss Bird.
you're right. Which it took me a minute to realize she's Mrs. Weasley.
Oh my God, is it?
Yeah.
Dude, I couldn't. I thought she looked familiar. Oh my God.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, yes, she's Molly Weasley.
Dude, shout out to Mama Bear Weasley, man.
Well, and you know,
Especially
Jim Broadbent is Slugworth, not Slugworth.
Oh, no, yeah, no, you're right, Slugworth. No,
he's the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. No, the potions teacher. In Half Blood Prince.
Yeah, yeah, Slughorn.
Thank you. Slugworth.
Because Slugworth is Waka.
It's not even close. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, Slughorn. That's who he is. Anyway, but yeah, no, she's amazing. I really like that she's sort of this woman who can do it all, who keeps the family together, who keeps her house together, and she's sort of this enigma, this mystery that, you know, she's not all that she seems to be. Like, she could also have been part of, you know, MI5 or something, in a, you know, when she was younger or whatever.
I mean, she drinks that security guard under the table, man.
Yeah, that was great. And she was
two whole bottles of whiskey, and she's still standing.
We thought for sure that Nicole Kidman died, and we're just like, I guess people die in this kid's film. I don't know what's going on, you know.
Now I had a suspicion. I'm like, she's definitely gonna get pushed off that roof. I was like, but nah, they're probably not gonna kill her. I do find it funny though that they felt like prison wouldn't have been very reformative for her, right. So they sentenced her to community service. And she's
kills me.
Yeah. No,
anything but that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, now okay. If you'd like, we can sort of scale on over to the second one, which yes is somehow better, because at this point I'm like, how could it be? This movie was amazing. So like, how can the second one be any better? And it just is. And a lot of it, again, has to do with these unique, clever, complicated film techniques and film language that carries over to this type of storytelling and visual language that is incredible and so effective in a way to communicate story and theme and tone, and you could still, like, a child could still understand. Um,
Yeah.
my okay,
Yeah.
when the movie started and
Mhm.
he's wiping down the window in the attic and he wrote his name and then wiped a 2 real fast. I mean, I'm like, we're in for a treat because it's simple but clever, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, well, I'm going to love this whole thing if the whole thing is like this, and it was.
Yeah. Well, I guess before we really jump into it, you're gonna have to get everyone the
Right.
synopsis of the
So
second one.
Paddington 2. He has settled in with the Browns. He is a official family member. When he walks into the antique shop, he calls him Mr. Brown, Paddington Brown, and I was like, oh my god,
Did you about die?
yeah. I was like, oh my god, they let him have their last name. Oh, that's so cute. Um, and then it got even cuter, uh, because he's trying to find a birthday present for his Aunt Lucy, and so far, I mean, like, it's so cute. And so, um, he has found the perfect birthday present. It is a pop up book of famous places in London, and she's always wanted to go to London. And so he goes, "This is perfect." Um, but of course, the shopkeep is like, "Hey, that's a lot of money," you know. Paddington then starts doing odd jobs. Eventually, settles on window cleaning because we'll talk about the other ones in a minute, but they didn't really pan out. Uh, and turns out a bear is really just a big sponge. Um,
Yeah.
if you want to boil it down to what a bear really is, and and so he's trying to get money for that. He meets, or we as an audience meet, um, a new addition to the neighborhood who is a once famous actor played by Hugh Grant. Um, and he finds out about the book and is immediately very interested, which is worrisome because Paddington needs that book, and I think Paddington deserves that book. Anyway, it turns out that the book has clues and hidden symbols within it, or hidden symbols are around the city of London, and there are clues in the book to lead to a hidden treasure. Um, and Hugh Grant's character, and I am blanking on his name at the moment.
Phoenix
Thank you.
Buchanan.
His grandfather murdered the woman who wrote the book, whose treasure they were trying to find, um, and is determined to fulfill his family's lineage's legacy to find the treasure. And unfortunately, that comes at the expense of Paddington, who is um, mistakenly accused of stealing the book when Buchanan stole it himself in disguise. And Paddington is then put in prison, and you think that's super dark, but really, Paddington is so charming and wonderful that he makes friends with everyone there, um, and reforms the prison uh, the way only Paddington can. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
Buchanan is going around the city in different sort of outfits and costumes and elaborate heists to try to collect all the clues in order to find the treasure. Eventually, he collects all the clues. The Browns, trying to clear Paddington's name, find out that Buchanan is the person behind all of this. It all culminates with them chasing Buchanan, finding Buchanan. There's a big train sequence, a wonderful, wonderful homage to Charlie Chaplin, and they capture Buchanan, get the book, and all is restored and put back in place. And that's Paddington 2. I yada yada do a lot
Yeah.
of that, obviously, but yeah, this movie is somehow, I mean, I wouldn't say head and shoulders above the first one, but it's a significant increase in quality, in emotionality, in storytelling. and in filmmaking.
Well, and I think it's because Paul King and his team took all those elements that we were just talking about for the first film, and I feel like they just cranked them up to an 11.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why this movie is so significantly better, and made Javi want to be a better man.
Yeah.
Because it's so good in its, like you just said, its emotionality, the weight, and then of course the scene, which I want to spend 2 fucking hours on. Sorry, I was really gonna try not to swear this episode.
Damn it.
But that's specific. We just keep going. But that one scene, and I know you know which one I'm talking about, which we'll save, is so impactful that I'm like, this. I had to remember, this is a kids movie, or a family friendly movie. But I do want to talk about, I guess, the start really of how once again they doubled down on Paddington changes the world around him, rather than the world changing him. Like when we meet the Colonel, who's new to their, or maybe not necessarily new to their block, but we didn't meet him in the first movie, so I'm assuming he's new. He's clearly this very just, old, retired military man, and all Paddington does is clean his windows, and he sees the newsstand girl, and they fall in love.
Yeah.
And it's so cute that's all Paddington did. And that, because Paddington, the Colonel says, I don't want you to clean my windows because I'm not paying for it. And Paddington's like, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway, just because I think he would like it. And it's just so cute.
He's cute, man. He is adorable. He helps everyone around him simultaneously while they're helping him out. I mean, the sequence where he's getting to the antique shop by hitching rides with all of these different people. I mean, they're helping him by getting him to where he needs to go. But he's also helping them by, one of my favorite sections of this sequence is him helping the garbage guy with his test. The reason that's so significant is, you may not realize it, but to be a cab driver in London is one of the hardest jobs and one of the hardest tests to pass. Because not only do you need to know, and these are real, when he was, saying, quiz me, what's the fastest route to get from here to here? You do need to know that sort of stuff, and you need to know it about everywhere. But you also need to know significant historical facts about everywhere you're going. So you need to know history. You need to know, obviously, directions. You need to know where to go at what different times of day. You need to know times of, because it changes. And you need to be on top of all of it, and you need to know exactly what you're doing. And so that test is very hard to pass. So I like that they added that in there, because it's part of London culture that you probably wouldn't get unless somehow you knew. And I don't even remember how I know that. But,
but yeah, and I think this, especially this opening, is a way to show how much Paddington has changed the neighborhood and has changed people. Even, at least for the opening, Mr. Curry's at least kind of not on his case.
Kind of, sort of. I don't know. He sort of regressed a bit from the last one.
Yeah, we'll get there. But yeah, he's got marmalade sandwiches ready for everyone. It really just brightens up their day. And, I love that this is how Paul King really, I mean, this isn't the beginning of the film. This is after the opening sequence, but I just love that Paul King is reminding us of how charming, how sweet Paddington is, and how he affects change the only way he knows how, which is just to be positive. Um, and and I feel like that's even more evident when he goes to prison. Um, which like you said would seem really dark, and it starts very dark. It's very depressing, and you're like, oh man, like he's in prison. But it's almost like as soon as he befriends Brendan Gleeson, who
Yeah.
I'm sure we've said multiple times on the show, we love Brendan
Yes.
Gleeson. He's so fantastic. That's when things start to change for him. He's got Knuckles with a capital N on his side.
Now I remember seeing
I
stills of this movie, and I wasn't really connecting the dots that he's wearing, prison clothes. But I was like, is this some sort of dream sequence that they're in pink? Because that seems really weird. And then, of course, I mean, what a fun way to get everyone in pink.
that he accidentally throws a red sock in with the
Yeah,
whites.
poor guy.
I will say, I felt very seen when he breaks the handle off the washer. Because I did that when I was in Australia. Wow. We were doing a homestay with a family who took us in, and they were kind enough to wash myself and one of the other persons, delegates from our trip, kind enough to wash our clothes for us. And then I couldn't remember if I had taken something out of one of my pants pockets, so I went to just double check, and I ended up breaking the handle off, and I felt so terrible. And I'm sure now, that was over 15 years ago. I'm sure now that family doesn't care, but I'm sure in the moment they were so mad at me.
Now, I was okay. So, but before we get to prison and all of that, a few things. One,
okay,
I think one of the more wholesome moments, or one of the cutest moments, I thought, was when Mrs. Bird, does the coin trick out of his ear, and now that's where he puts it, because he doesn't understand that it was just a trick, right? That he goes, huh, how did that get there? Okay, thank you. He's sort of like Amelia Bedelia in that moment, that he doesn't understand that it was a magic trick, and so that's where he now keeps the coin, which I thought was hilarious and so cute. Now the odd jobs. So him at the barbershop was hysterical.
Yeah.
Him and it being significant to the story. So I enjoyed that, we had this little fun slapsticky sort of, Marx Brothers, Chaplin, Buster Keaton sort of moment, but it then being significant later, with him ending up being the judge that's presiding over the case.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoyed. But I think the highlight of at least the first half of the film is the pop-up book sequence, where he's imagining taking Aunt Lucy and showing her all of the places in London that she would go. First off, is adorable just in and of itself. Even if they were, we take the pop-up book out of the equation, it's still a beautiful, wonderful, sweet moment. But adding in that
100%.
added detail of Paddington imagining, not just, this isn't him imagining what it would be like for Lucy to flip through it. It's almost like he's imagining her joy, her excitement, her emotional state, by putting herself in the perspective of being in London through the book. And it's a beautiful way to show it, and to show through the visual language, and showing an emotional state visually, which I thought was brilliant. And again, it's the type of filmmaking that most people wouldn't bother with in a family film, because that takes a lot, not necessarily a lot of it, it's more complicated than, just, simplifying it, obviously. Um,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
mean,
No,
I couldn't I couldn't get over it. I fell in love. I thought it was beautiful.
yeah, yeah. No, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because they could have just easily have been him like flipping through it and being like, oh, she would love this, and that kind of thing. But instead, they're like, no, we're going to show exactly what you just said, of him imagining what it would be like if he were to actually take her, and how happy she would be reading the book. um and it's so cute,
Yeah.
and it's so cool too that also they kind of combined CGI and almost 2D
Mhm.
animation at the same time, which is also
Yeah.
fantastic. I really love when they mix mediums like that. um Yeah, and I think, and again, that's a testament to Paul King and his team of wanting to do something different. Um, like I said, in a traditional movie, they probably would have just shown him flipping through it. But Paul King or someone in his team was like, no, like, wouldn't it be cooler if we were to show from his perspective what it would be like?
I mean, it was incredible.
And
I couldn't believe it.
and it works.
I loved it. And again, that's not, I mean, it would be one thing if that was like a standout moment, which it is, but there are multiple moments of clever, complicated filmmaking throughout the film, um,
Hmm.
which I, again, loved. But yeah, okay, so um, poor Paddington is in jail. Um, and yeah, I mean, again, it's a great example of Paddington using his charm, his positivity, his politeness, um, to win over everyone. I mean, that's just how
Hmm.
it is. Um, and I like that these films just sort of, we're not we're not spending too much time on him trying to win people over necessarily. Besides, I guess Knuckles would be the example. Much like in the first film, we're not spending any time on this bear can talk. I'm so happy that we didn't do that. Um,
Yeah, that people aren't, yeah, pulling a Sonic the Hedgehog, the first one, where Jim Carrey freaks out by seeing a talking anthropomorphic
yeah,
hedgehog.
I that's so boring. Um, in which I assume is how the books are. The books are just like Paddington is just a bear, and people just that's just what it is.
Yeah, people just
Yeah,
accept that he's a bear. Yeah.
yeah. The acceptance of certain things I appreciate, because I don't have time for this other stuff. I think it's boring, and it's played out, and it's dull. But yeah, just Paddington is just so warm and inviting and sweet and wonderful that people just can't help themselves. Um, and I love that he reforms the prison and has everyone be more positive and be more friendly and be more kind and accepting, um, and it really literally brightens the place up. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I do want to say, before, it kind of goes in hand with him going to prison. Um, Richard Ayoade's
mhm,
character. Um, there's an interview. I meant to send it to you, but I completely
that's
forgot. Or no, he was on a game show, and he says something like, "Yeah, I sent Paddington to prison," and they're like, "What?" They're like, "No, you didn't." He was like, "Yeah, I was in that movie, and I sent him to prison."
it's true.
Um,
Yeah.
and I just love that he's like just proud of the fact that
Yeah.
he sent Paddington to prison. Um, But I love the character Tom Davis. His character's T-Bone, the one who's like, yeah, you should go talk to Knuckles. Because he just seems like this kind of larger than life character. Because he's also in Wonka. Because Paul King loves reusing the same actors, and that seems to be his his niche as an actor, is that he's this really big guy, but he's actually a big softie. Because I love when they open the floor up to, like, does anyone else know how to make anything else? What does he say he can make? He can make
Oh, jeez, I don't remember.
like,
It was days ago.
yeah, it was like, I can make a strawberry something. And what's funny is just because it just seems like he wouldn't be the guy. Like, he would, like, they kind of set it up to be like he wants to now take down Paddington, but instead Paddington just uses his charm on him. And even I love wishes him good luck when they escape.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, good luck, little bear. It's so good. And I do find it just so funny and cute and heartwarming that this little bear was able to reform this entire prison. And now here's a question for you, buddy.
Sure.
How hard did you laugh at the visitation scene?
I mean, it was super funny because he's introducing his new friends, and I love that, Mr. Brown just like shuts off the wrong thing. So good. It's classic.
And I love that. Yeah, and I love that Brendan Gleeson is the one to be like, Mr. Brown, we can still hear you. What you turned off there is the light. The microphone is the one on the left that says microphone, and they're all like, anyway. And I love that they just move past it. Yeah. Well, they kind of forgive him because they fall in love with Paddington. Yeah, so they're like, yeah, we'll let it slide.
Yeah, Brendan Gleeson, man, he's great.
Yeah, he's so great. I really love seeing him in a movie where he can really do something that's out of the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like being an Irishman, he's known for playing these, rough guys, like in Bruges.
He's so good in Bruges.
He's so good in Bruges.
It was incredible.
The King in Macbeth,
Oh, yeah.
But I love getting him to see him in something that that feels not necessarily out of his wheelhouse, but something that he gets to have a little bit more fun with. And you can just tell he's having fun.
Of course, everyone's got to be having the time of their lives.
Dude, I've heard that Paul King makes a very like fun and collaborative set, where everyone's like excited to like come in and work. But now, okay, we haven't spent a whole lot of time on Hugh Grant as Phoenix. I learned this recently. Apparently Hugh Grant had like a whole backstory for Phoenix that, of course, they're not going to use in the movie because it is a little inappropriate. But Hugh said in an interview, he was like, yeah, I had this whole backstory in mind, like to help me get in his mindset, where he was conceived at the Phoenix Theater, and that his mom was very distant, and so that's why he's become sort of like a mama's boy. And of course, now knowing that, then I saw the movie, I'm like, that all makes a lot of sense.
I like how he's. I thought it was funny that he's castawaying the mannequins, by giving them voices, and he's talking to them, and I did like that there were recognizable characters like that we would know, Hamlet, Perot, Scrooge. Yeah. I appreciated that. Shows off Hugh Grant's accent talent, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
And I asked Haley, I go, hey, would you ever let us have a house with like a green room and a red one and a, you know, she goes, I don't know, maybe, because his house is crazy. Um, not that
Yeah.
not that the Browns house isn't unique and quirky and fun. I think his was just loud. His was like very bright and just stark
Well,
in its color choices.
well, and it was definitely a house that like he's like people expect me to have a house like this. I'm an actor, or it's the opposite. He thinks that he should have a house this kind of
Sure,
chaotic,
perhaps.
and
I don't know. I
who
don't even
knows?
know if like that's even part of it. Maybe that's just how houses are in London. I don't know.
Maybe.
Because their neighborhood,
But
like
yeah,
the houses are all different colors. Um,
yeah. Um, but yeah, Phoenix is such an interesting villain in that he's just, I don't know. It's hard to describe
yeah,
Phoenix.
yeah. Hugh Grant's playing a. He's a very quirky, um, sort of over the top, very flamboyant in his tactics. Again, we get the callback with the security guard of him dressed as a nun and him, of course, falling for him being immediately attracted to Hugh Grant in drag, which is very funny. And yeah, and then the him dressed up as a knight, um, and it's fun. It's fun to see him be in all these different costumes and all these different characters, and it gave um, a unique villain role, I guess. Um,
Yeah, I would say he doesn't reach peak villainy until sort of the end of the
sure,
movie
yeah, I agree.
when I feel like he does become a little bit more villainous, especially threatening a child with a
Yeah,
sword. I mean, but yeah, during the whole lead up to that, he is sort of like a, you know, of course, I'm answering my own question because he thinks he's gotten away with it.
yeah,
You know, he thinks that, Paddington went to jail. They'll never suspect that it was me. They'll never figure out that it was me. I'm gonna, find this fortune and then I'm gonna make my comeback. Um, and so I think that's why up until the end of the movie, he's so sort of like quirky and flamboyant because I think he's, and rightfully so, he's pretty confident he got away with it.
for sure.
Um, but of course, you can't underestimate Paddington.
Right.
Never underestimate Paddington. Can I tell you the second hardest part I laughed in this movie? I'm not trying to skip ahead, but I laughed the hardest when he's meeting the Browns at the train station to try to catch Phoenix, and he's pretending to be a trash bin, and he's like, "All right, I'm a bin, and then he sees a cop coming and he stops, and then the cop throws away his donut, and Paddington, thank you, officer, just a bin here, and the officer's just like, okay, and I thought it was so funny that he's been living in London long enough to know that trash bins don't talk, but he still is like, just a normal bin here.
But
It's so
I mean,
good.
speaking of that escape sequence is so much fun.
Yes, I knew you were going to want to
Of
talk
course,
about the escape sequence from Prism.
duh. The escape sequence was incredible, and and like I said at the start, the Charlie Chaplin homage was amazing, and I felt like it was just for me. It's almost like they're like, listen, Jeremy's going to watch this in the future. He's He loves Charlie Chaplin films. I think he's really gonna like this. Because seemingly, I mean, I don't know who else it's for. But yeah, he goes through those gears in the clock, and he comes out and he's got a little grease Charlie Chaplin mustache. Uh, it is an homage to the 1936 film Modern Times, which shows Chaplin's tramp character clogged in gears, just like Paddington was. So that was fun. I really enjoyed that, and of course it's a hot air balloon escape, which I really liked also.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, what are they doing with all this stuff? Now, I should mention. I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. That their escape scene, and hang on, I'm looking it up. Okay, their escape scene was very Grand Budapest-esque.
I wouldn't disagree. It did feel similar. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Paul King is a bit of a Wes Anderson fan, which, you know what? Now I'm even more of a fan of Paul King. But I think it was because maybe since that came out 3 years prior, they were like, okay, we can take some of these elements and, incorporate them. Like when they're going through the dining hall and Brendan Gleeson's like, and we're on this oneer of just following them. It felt very Wes Anderson.
I mean, I don't disagree. Yeah, I think that's accurate for sure.
But again, I think Paul King was able to make it his own too.
Of course.
I mean, because Wes Anderson didn't have a talking bear in Grand Budapest. Now, I do want to mention, it did kind of break my heart a little bit that of the reveal that they lied to Paddington, that they just wanted to get out of prison.
Yeah, that was a shame.
Now, of course, they did want to take him with them. Yeah. They're like, come with us. But I think they kind of underestimated, one, the integrity of Paddington. And two, I think they underestimated his love for the Browns, that he's not going to just leave the country.
No, he may have thought that they forgot about him.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm not crying.
It's okay. But he still loves the Browns. So.
Yeah. Man. And I wouldn't say it's a problem with the movie. I have no problems with this movie whatsoever. But I was like, when they were telling Paddington before they escaped prison, like, they're gonna forget about you. I'm like, don't tell him that.
Tell Paddington that.
Don't tell Paddington that. And then they do, but not because they were doing it on purpose, because they figured out that Phoenix Buchanan was the one who set up Paddington. They ended up missing visiting, and I'm like, oh no.
I know. I was devastated when they missed visitation, and his poor little face. He was so sad. And I can only imagine Zach and Lila watching watching it, and just both of them just being so sad, because Paddington is so sad. Yeah, that was a bummer for me. I was really bummed out about that, because it's one of those things where it's like, buddy, I wish I could just tell you that they're trying,
where you kind of like access like being a kid watching a movie where you wish you could like speak to the screen.
Yeah, I was like, no, buddy, they didn't forget about you, I promise.
Yeah, it's, and again, it goes back to what I said when we started talking about Paddington 2, which is, I think Paul King and everyone took those elements from the first movie and just amped them up.
Yeah.
In a good way, not to pander to anyone, not to do it, I wouldn't say maliciously, lazily.
Yeah.
But I think they recognized, okay, for the sequel, we need to take these things and heighten.
Yeah, I mean, it's an equally an all is lost moment, just like the one in the first film. We need these
Mm-hmm.
moments, we need these beats, because yes, these are very unique, progressive, clever um, films, but they still hit certain traditional beats and tropes. And right, um, I will say we're skipping ahead a bit, but I read today that Sally Hawkins was filming The Shape of Water during this, and so there were times where she would film The Shape of Water, and then she had just finished, and she was so excited because she goes, "Oh, thank God, I get to go."
I don't have to be underwater.
And then I know. She goes, "Oh man, that was so hard. I'm so happy I'm done with all that." And then she reads the script for Paddington too. She and she has to be underwater again. Um, yeah, poor Sally Hawkins.
She's also in Wonka.
Did she?
She's Willy Wonka's
I
mom.
love Sally Hawkins. I think she's incredible.
Yeah, she's fantastic, man. I'm disappointed she wasn't able to come back for the
I saw
third
that. I
one,
saw
which
it's
I mean,
Emily Mortimer.
Emily Mortimer.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which I mean, Emily Mortimer's
Yeah, yeah.
great,
Hey, no,
but
no one say anything. No one say anything negative about Emily Mortimer. Listen, I have seen The
but
Newsroom like 5 times. I love her.
but if I ever do see Paddington in Peru, um, it's not going to be the same without
It's not gonna be the
Sally.
same as us.
Now I will say this. Hang on, I want to get this out real
Sure.
quick. I was telling Ashley this, that I'm bothered by the fact that the third movie has a subtitle.
Oh, okay.
That it's not, like we had Paddington, then Paddington 2, and then instead of Paddington 3, it's Paddington in Peru. And that bothers me so much. Because, like, look, even though I love Deadpool and Wolverine, they did the same thing. Deadpool 2, Deadpool
Okay,
and Wolverine. I'm
one
like,
more example, and then we'll let it go. John Wick Chapter 2, John Wick 3 Parabellum. I understand. All right.
but see, that still said John Wick Chapter 3.
Fine.
I would be so upset if it was just John Wick Parabellum. I would have been like, ugh. I don't get it. I don't like it, and I don't get it. Anyway. So okay. I think it's time, Jeremy, that we talk about the scene, and I think this is why Paddington 2 is far better than the first one. So it's during that train chase, which I laughed so hard when Paddington is using the toffee apples.
Oh, that was so funny.
It was, and then he screams when he has to lean back. It's so good. But Phoenix gets the jump on him and traps him in the caboose car and detaches it from the train and sends it off on its own track, which then careens into the water, and Mary, Mrs. Brown, has to save Paddington. Dude, it wrecked me.
Yeah.
The fact that he accepted his fate,
Yeah,
and gives her a look of leave me behind.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't like it, because, again, no. So I love it because it is a very complicated issue to put into a kid's movie.
it's a complex state of emotion of accepting your fate and wanting, basically sacrificing yourself for someone else. It's he's like, Miss Brown, it's okay, get some air.
You can let me go. Yeah, dude. They did the same fucking thing. Sorry, at this point I already swore, so I'm just gonna. They did the same thing in Toy Story 3, and that destroyed me too.
Right.
That they all just accept their fate, like, well. And see, but again, and I think this is why this movie is significantly better than the first one, because like we just said, this is a very complex thing to have in a children's movie. Because, you know, I'm sure kids had questions like, wait, why is Paddington not trying anymore?
Yeah.
But thank
Poor
God, dude, I would have passed away if he didn't make it. So thank God, we get a moderate redemption for Brendan Gleeson and the other prison buddies,
Yeah.
Spoon and Phibbs, who come in and save the day, and Paddington makes it out. But yeah, dude, I remember seeing that at AT&T, and that's what made I'm like, okay, I have to see this movie now. I need to know how we get here.
Yeah.
I need to know what made him just accept it. Like, this is what it is. Mrs. Brown, leave me behind. I was like, I need to know.
I think the most emotional I got, it wasn't that moment, even though it was very emotional. But you know, the third one has ruined that for us because it's like, hey, he'll be fine. Uh, he's
That's true.
Is at the very end when they fly Aunt Lucy into London. I'm a mess. I'm a puddle, dude, because like it's so sweet and it's so cute, and Paddington gets to be with Aunt Lucy again, and because you know he's always writing to her, he's constantly filling her in with his life and what's going on and what's new with the Browns and what's new with him, and um, even from prison and all of that. It's yeah, I mean it's just so sweet and it's wonderful. It's beautiful. I love it. When the doorbell rings and I just turn to Haley and I go, "They brought Lucy." It was over.
Well, well, dude, and you're right. It's so adorable, and like, and you know, and I think what makes it so much better is that Paddington doesn't know, you know, and then Mary's like, why don't you go answer that? And of course, and so he's like, okay, but we're like,
It's Aunt
like,
Lucy.
oh my God. Yeah, dude, it's yeah, and the fact that they just end it right
Yeah.
there, like that's the final frame of the movie, and it's one of those, it ends on a happy note, but you're crying happy
Yes, of
tears.
course. Like I mean it's so sweet. I loved it. There's no other words. I loved it. I thought it was incredible, amazing. Loved it.
Well, I love the scrapbook in
Yes,
the
of course.
credits where I was like, oh. And then we get to see that Knuckles, Spoons, and Phibbs all get pardoned, and Knuckles opens up a tea room.
Yeah.
It's so good. I love that we kind of get a where are they now. And I especially love we get to see what happens to Phoenix. That he's also taken the prison to another area of being reformed, where they perform musicals now. Apparently,
with you know sequins and sparkles and a very very high production value.
Yeah.
With this musical
Sidebar: I read that apparently Phoenix shows up in the third one.
Interesting.
But he's still in prison.
Good.
Oh man. With that being said, buddy, are you ready to wrap up?
I am. I'm sure we missed a lot. I apologize. Paddington 2. These are incredible. I will definitely be watching them again. I'm gonna have Maya watch these, you know, for the rest of our lives. I assume Maya's gonna love it. I know it's one Haley won't mind watching, which is great. Again, she liked it. That's a huge deal. Yeah, they're incredible.
Yeah, because every household needs a marmalade
That's right.
day.
Every household needs a marmalade day. I loved, you know, some extras stuff that I loved. He always had a sandwich in his hat, always, even in prison, which I appreciated. Because him tossing his stuff in the laundry, and he took off his hat, and there was a sandwich in the
which makes you wonder how he got it in.
Yeah, who knows? I loved. I'd love every time he's clumsy. I like, that, he's still so naive, and so like he's just sort of bumbling around. Again, the coin in the ear just really brought me a lot of joy. Just the earnestness.
And then he keeps putting it back in.
Yeah, the earnestness of him truly not understanding that it was a magic trick. I loved. I think that's just it's so innocent and so beautiful and so cute, and I love it. Which is anything Paddington does or says. Paddington truly does makes us want to be better people. 100%.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
Yeah. Yeah. To quote Javi, it makes us want to be a better man. Yeah.
Yep. Well, that was fun.
Well, hopefully I can keep this momentum going for next week. Well, everyone, so next week is my pick. And I'm running low on some movies. But I had my wife pick, and I'm not going to redo it. So this is what she picked. So next week, everyone, we are going to follow up these very cute movies with a dark comedy, crime, drama, thriller. I don't remember if you've seen this movie. I feel like you have. Next week, everyone, we haven't talked about a David Lynch film in a little bit. So next week, we are discussing the 1990 film Wild at Heart. Have you seen this movie? I feel like you've told me you've seen this movie. You haven't?
No.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, it's gonna be this is gonna be a crazy one, man. I've seen. All you need to do is just see clips of Willem Dafoe and his baby teeth, and you know what I mean, like.
Yeah, I do know that. Like, weren't those like prosthetic teeth that
it's like 90% gums.
Now this will be very interesting because we haven't talked about a Lynch film that's been an adaptation.
Have we not? I guess not.
No, because we've done Lost Highway, done Fire Walk with Me, and we've done Eraserhead.
Okay, cool. So we haven't done like Elephant Man,
or Dune, or A Straight Story. Okay. So this will be interesting, because I remember you telling me that there are two different kinds of Lynch. There's Lynch, and then there's adaptation Lynch.
Yeah.
Which you've always told me adaptation Lynch is completely different from standard Lynch.
I would think so. I mean, in The Elephant Man, which is an incredible film, by the way, if you haven't seen it, it's an adaptation, yet Lynch still sort of peeks through a little. I've not seen A Straight Story. However, it is my understanding that it is just a straight adaptation. He's not putting in any sort of weirdness, any Lynchian things, because that's not what the story calls for. So,
right.
He is self-aware enough to know and smart enough to understand when it's appropriate and when it isn't. And so, with this, I am seeing that that Barry Gifford, who wrote the novel Wild at Heart, also wrote Lost Highway. With David Lynch. So it could be very, very interesting.
Well, and I'm pretty sure this film has a lot of the Reservos elements that I saw in Lynch Oz, that documentary, which makes me very excited.
Yeah.
Because I never realized Lynch had an obsession with Wizard of Oz until I watched that documentary,
Right.
and now I'm like, oh my god, it makes so much more sense now.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah, I'm really excited, man. This will be fun.
Yeah.
So cool. All right, Wild at Heart next week.
Yeah, Wild at Heart, man. Well, everyone, we hope you enjoyed this double feature on Paddington and Paddington 2, and we'll see you next week for Wild at Heart.